Right.
Hey, and the show must go on.
The show must go on, even if it looks
Yes.
like I'm filming on a 1940s camcorder. I don't think they had camcorders, but
They had something back
my
then.
picture's bad for some reason. I've been playing with it here, and it's obviously night outside if you're watching.
Right.
This is Thursday evening for Merle and I. We just have had a pretty hectic schedules, so we're
Yeah.
doing what we can. And
Yeah.
welcome to Over 50 Starting Over. I'm Barry Edwards.
And I'm Merle Garrison.
Yeah, you are. How you feeling, buddy?
Today's the best day I've had in almost 2 weeks. So
That's
I
so
am
good to hear.
feeling like I'm on the mend and
Yeah.
getting better. I actually all day felt like me, and that is a big deal. I don't know. I picked up whatever's going around. They call it COVID. I think that's what it was.
Oh, I
didn't
know you
actually
had
get
COVID.
tested. Well, everyone I talked to told me, yeah, that's what happens with COVID.
Yeah.
And so that must have been it. I gotta say, that was no joke, man. It was here's the thing, it came with symptoms I've never had before, and also there was a darkness that came along with it, if you know what I mean.
Explain this a bit, please. First, the symptoms you never had before and this darkness.
Well, it's bad enough that you're sick, and I had the headache and I had a fever, and I was nauseated, which that's one of the worst things, nauseated. I had a bad cough. But along with that came intense pain in my spine,
in your spine.
From the bottom of my spine to the top. It was almost like a hot cord. Like in my mind, I could see my spine, and it was all like glowing red, woo, like that, and I couldn't sleep, and I couldn't get comfortable no matter what I did, tossing and turning. Oh yeah, and I was hot, and then I was cold, and then I was hot, and then I was cold, and then I drink lots of fluids, right? So I'm drinking lots of fluids, meaning I have to get up to go to the bathroom. Every time I would freak out with the chills every time I would get out of bed, and that would cause more nausea. And then it was just almost panic. And I mean, and it took all the energy out of me too. I was on my back for about 10 days there. I don't get sick. I don't get sick. So this was, it was crazy. But so those were some of the symptoms. That there were strange pains, like I said, my back, even in my foot. At one point I woke up to a terrible shooting pain in my foot, and it's like, what is going on here? But then it's like this dark, like, feeling, foreboding, almost anxious, there's no rest. It's this, it's almost like you're in a panic, but you don't have any energy. It was otherworldly. That's about how I can explain it to you. Fortunately, I had, friends in the neighborhood that brought medicine, and I had ivermectin. Yeah, and I had ivermectin from that I'd stored up, and I started taking that right away, and I believe it was helping me. But I tell you, I'm just happy to be back to feeling like me again.
Well, I'm glad you're back. We had 2 weeks off here, and I just simply myself been incredibly busy and thankful for that, because I love what I do, and I'm doing a lot of video right now.
Awesome.
I really enjoy it. I'm gonna make sure I enable screen share for you, but would you mind if I shared a promo video that I did?
Oh, sure. Let's see it.
Okay, I'm gonna have to find it.
What is this? Give the cue up. Who was this for?
So this is for my electrical tech skills client. The electrical safety guy I talk a lot about. We're created a whole new brand for another company that qualifies people, floor workers, to become electrically qualified so that they can work on machinery. And so I created this from the brand up, the logo, slogans, did the writing, the scripting, even the voiceover, and all of this video overlay here.
Yes, there it is. The volume's good.
All right. Minimize downtime by maximizing your workforce. Check out that. An electrical technician that can troubleshoot and safely repair your plant's equipment will ultimately add to your organization's bottom line. The untrained technician unnecessarily replaces costly parts and often must wait for tech support from engineering, the supervisory staff, or outsourced support. This wastes valuable time and money. In some cases, the equipment gets damaged because parts are installed incorrectly or the workmanship is substandard. The training professionals at ETS have designed a course that will give your technicians the skills and knowledge they need to become safe and technically proficient in just 4 days. The Fundamentals of Electrical Maintenance course begins with basic electrical theories and ends with advanced electrical maintenance troubleshooting concepts. The course combines classroom lectures and hands-on training with real-world industrial equipment for a higher retention of information. This interactive course educates new technicians and improves the skill of experienced electricians that install, maintain, repair, or troubleshoot industrial electrical equipment rated 600 volts or less. See our website for convenient monthly open enrollment classes in Cleveland, Ohio. Conveniently located 15 minutes from Hopkins Airport. We offer a 20% discount for 3 or more enrollees. All working materials provided. electricaltechskills.com. And that's it. So those of you that are listening, sorry about that. There's just sounding like me just talking. But I learned a whole new program, or professional, professional, all my programs are professional, Hollywood rated program for doing the video. Did you notice like the different lighting effects and color changes and stuff? And
very cool.
flashes.
And you know, the thing that I like about it is that by using those kinds of graphics and the way that things came in, even your imagery, I got a lot of information out of it, but there was an emotional aspect to it as well.
That's
where I could really feel the inadequacy of, oh my God, I got to replace these parts.
That's like in that part I said briefly, I'm like, notice the lighting, because it just made the photo go darker and darker as you know it was going.
And I could relate to those moments of myself trying to figure out how to do something, and now it's cost me 4 times as much as it would have.
Yeah. See, that's what I love about my career is that ability, the attempt to try to first of all, you have to have a product. Like in sales, you have to have a product, a client that you really believe in.
Right.
And when you do, you get to know them and get to like the real inner passion and their inner character. And then you could go, oh yeah, now I believe. And then you can start putting things together. Just a logo, a slogan, that's where it starts. But boy, when I can get up to doing video and I can do whatever I can imagine in my mind, it's tedious, I'll tell you that, but it's fun and rewarding. And I got to tell you, Merle, so I'm also working on these videos for a 5-hour training class, online training class. I'm doing 5 hours of video with overlays and effects and stuff, minor stuff, tasteful, but it's so intense. I'm dreaming it all night. I'm working all night. I'm working all day. And then when I go to bed, I'm just dreaming it. Yes, oh, it's exhausting. Yes. I'm so exhausted right now. Look at my eyes. The lighting isn't bad enough.
I can relate to this. I have, sometimes I'll get caught in a deal where everything, I can't stop. I'm working the deal all night long. And when it's, then I wake up, I'm exhausted from working all night long. And it's like, gosh,
I hear you.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So
this client of yours, is this a longtime client of yours or one of your first? Okay. Cause I thought I recognized that logo before.
It's similar to his other company. This is a new offshoot, and I think it's going to be really gangbusters for him. There's a lot of demand for it and not a lot of competition.
And now, have you done video, have you done stuff like this for him before? Because this is... Yeah, you have. Okay.
This is higher end video. Like I've been doing video for years, but I was always just using iMovie, which is a little more rudimentary. And now
what is this program?
Adobe Premiere.
Adobe Premiere. And how did you land on that? Is this kind of what others in your trade are using, or
Yeah,
how do you
very.
guys come up with this kind of stuff? I mean,
I don't know how
this
to
is the
answer that.
magic, right? Like,
It is the magic. No, this is Hollywood like stuff. I
right.
ran into a guy at the park just a couple months ago when I was walking Charlie.
Uh-huh.
He was walking his dog, and we just got to talking. And I don't know how I came about it, but we were talking about what do you do? What do I do? And he is like the head art director or something for the Cleveland Orchestra, I think it was. And
Wow, it's
and
a big deal.
I said, you know what? I Lisa and I saw Andre Bocelli, the opera singer,
Yeah,
a couple
yeah,
years ago at the Cleveland Gund Arena or
yeah.
something like that. And the coolest thing was it was we were like dreading going. We were both tired but we paid like $300, so we were
Woo.
gonna go.
Yeah, yeah.
Ended up having the best time. And we kept looking
Really?
at each other, going, "Oh my god!"
Because of his voice.
His voice and the presentation, the
Really?
guest singers that he had. But so he's flanked by these two giant screens with all this video going to the music. And this guy that I met was in charge of the art direction of it.
Oh, wow.
So,
Wow.
and that's what I was at the time. I was exploring where I was going to go next with my video.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, do you guys use Adobe After Effects?
Uh-huh.
Was that it? And he goes, no, we do
Premiere.
everything in Adobe Premiere. He goes, we used to. Now we use Adobe. I'm like, that's where I'm going.
How about that? So you had experienced it
Mhm.
before you actually.
Oh,
That is a great story.
It blew my mind. The
Wow.
whole presentation of that
How
was
cool. I'm
it
glad
was
I
way
asked you
cool.
that. Yeah.
Well, I am too, because like I said, we were just tired and we didn't think we were like, we're gonna have to fight traffic and no, everything about it was the best experience.
Okay, that's a great story. Okay.
Yeah.
You didn't feel
It kind
like
of ties into something I want to
went
talk
there.
about.
It was like kismet right there. That I mean, here's something that I've been really focused on lately, especially since I've had a lot of time to think over the last couple of
Yeah,
weeks.
you have.
Something in the Bible that says that all things work together for good for those who love God and are called according to his purpose. And so you think about that, and the first thing that comes to your mind is all these good things that happen to lead to other good things, but that's not what it says. It says that all things, it's talking about all things, even the bad things, are going to ultimately lead to something good. You didn't feel like going, but you're dreading it.
Yeah.
But look what came out of that.
Yeah.
Not just an epic time that night, but this actually augments your career path. This is a life enhancer for eons. I mean, what a cool story. And you made a great connection to boot with art director for the world-renowned Cleveland Orchestra. I mean, they are world-renowned.
Oh, they're very world-renowned. They're the top. To your point about even bad things are orchestrated for good. Buddy, if it weren't for bad things, none of us would ever change. It is, we would all be like very immature, basically.
We would. You're exactly right.
All the bad things are little slaps. Hey, get back in the right path.
Boy, I was listening to somebody recently that was talking about, it was RFK Jr. I sent you this video, and he was talking about his philosophy, which I found extremely amazing. But he was talking about what the world needs now. And he was talking about there's a difference between humiliation and humility. And
there's a huge difference.
What the world needs is the humility. And he says, just what you were saying just now, is we go through life and we don't have those hard things, and it's just everything's given to you on a silver platter. Eventually you're going to run into ruination and you're going to be humiliated. But when you jump into life and you go to help the person that's unlovely, talk to the person that's unlovable, jump into impossible situations to help, to taking your eyes off of yourself and putting it on the other person. That's where humility comes from.
Perspective too.
Where you exactly, and you might not agree with the other person's lifestyle or what they're doing or how they are in general, but understanding their perspective, right? It doesn't mean you have to agree, but you
Empathy. It's
understand. You
empathy.
yes,
It's a very difficult place to reach.
and this is where this whole concept of being united, actually united doesn't mean that everybody thinks the exact same way. That's a fallacy. That's impossible.
Differences.
That's totalitarian societies. When you force, because no people are very different, like snowflakes, right? And there's no two people that are the same. Not like the
that's
funny,
right?
right?
Yeah.
But it's true, and this is where it is, and we need to accept each other's differences. We don't have to agree with them, but that's who they are. And boy, that's where unity comes from.
But we're also 99% alike. But we focus on those
two sides of the coin. We need to focus on both. There's got to be an even keel in between. And I think the very first thing, and we talk about this all the time, is how we need to figure out the things that we have in common first, and then we can figure out our differences from there. Because when we first find out what we have in common, we start to learn that our differences aren't really that different,
right?
And we can start to relate to each other. I read this book while I was on my back, and this is a new
America. Wow,
this is a new book. This might have been why I had some dark feelings.
I bet.
But this was written.
I like the cover though.
Oh, don't you? I
like
love the cover. This was a gift. Anne Marie got this for me out of the blue. And you know me, I love books, and especially a hardcover, and that's what this is. And this was brand new. It just came out. It's from She Van Fleet. And I just want to read just this inside cover here, so you know what this is about. Because I think this is a book that everyone needs to get right now. In fact, put it on pause, order it on Amazon, and then come back. You need this book. This is and She Van Fleet, you might have heard of her before, but let me just tell you who she is. It's an inspiring survivor of Mao's Cultural Revolution in China, who immigrated to America, makes a passionate case that history is eerily repeating itself.
Oh yeah, it is.
Yes, it is. And I'm telling you, she makes just like if she was a basketball player, she'd be making 3-point swishes every time. I mean, she is just spot on. Okay. She Van Fleet lived through the horrors of the Chinese Cultural Revolution as a schoolgirl, forced to the countryside with other young Chinese for re-education after high school. She later escaped communism and found freedom and a new life in America. But more than 30 years later, she disturbingly sees signs of the same cultural Marxism that ravaged her birth country of China, threatening to destroy the America she now calls home. This is her dire warning to the United States. She compellingly tells the story of two cultural revolutions, one driven by Mao during her childhood, and the other one unfolding in today's America from the progressive left. From captivating personal stories and extensive historic research, she reveals the stunning similarities of these two revolutions. This fascinating book shows readers that both revolutions use Marxist tactics of division, indoctrination, deception, corrosion, cancellation, subversion, and violence, aim to destroy the foundation of the traditional culture to replace it with Marxist ideologies, weaponize youth, using them as their means to an end, share the same goal of achieving absolute power at the expense of the people, and lead to the same ending, loss of freedom and totalitarian rule. She now devotes her life to educating the American public on the shocking parallels between these two revolutions, because only when Americans understand what is really happening will they rise up and resist the communist takeover of America. And so one of the most dramatic things that she talks about in this book is the Red Guard that formed as a result of Mao's Cultural Revolution. And I really believe what we're seeing today is America's version of the Red Guard. And she she pulls this out of her exact experiences. And just let me give you a snapshot of what was happening. The Red Guard was all about the youth, and ages 8 to 22, let's say, were the target. And what Mao had done was he gave these young people autonomy to travel the country for free and to protest anything that goes against Mao's philosophy. He wanted to get rid of all the old traditions, all of the old ways, all of everything that made people a society in China. He wanted to get rid of. He wanted complete allegiance to himself. He wanted to get rid of all books and anything that went against his philosophy, which was a crazy philosophy. And so he empowered this Red Guard to storm into people's houses and take anything that was old. Like, for instance, they would take all of my books. They would take anything valuable, like my jewelry, my wife's jewelry, any photos. They'd take all your photos. And the only thing that you had to read during that time period was Mao's Little Red Book, which was a book that he had written with his philosophy, which became the scriptures. That if anybody went against anything that was written inside of that book, they would be informed against. They would have what's called struggle sessions, where these young people would surround you walking down the street, and they would yell shame, and then they would push you, and a lot of people were killed that way. Thousands and thousands of people ended up getting killed that way. But what happened was it ended up closing down the schools for 2.5 years. It ruined their education. Boys and girls had to dress the same. There was no gender differences anymore. Girls got short haircuts. Boys and girls dressed exactly the same. Basically, all of the good things in life and family and worship of your God were stripped away by this army of people, and fear was replaced. And what it ended up doing was completely destroying their economy and devastating their morality. And it led to the place where China is today. But when you start to look at the parallels and you see what's happening with the young people today, especially, this whole thing started out with going after the schools and controlling the education, and then instituting this dogmatic ideology into these kids that didn't know any better. And one of the first things that they had to do was decouple them from their parents and turn them into informants against their own parents.
Right.
And you heard all of these different stories.
Yeah, and there's a lot of similar stories. It kind of happens the same way every time we go down the authoritarian path. And Yumni Park, we talked about her many times. I've heard her on a few different podcasts talk about escaping North Korea, um, to flee to go to China, being sold into sex slavery, escaped from there, got back to South Korea, got very educated, where they're very serious about their education there, then came to the United States and to continue her education, and was blown away with how we are at the very beginnings of indoctrination here.
Well, let me continue down this path a little bit, and then we can go on to anything else we want. But I just read this article today, and it's by this guy named Beckett Adams. He works for the Washington Examiner. So, of course, this is going to have a very conservative spin on it, but one that seems to make a lot of common sense. But what he's saying is everything the social justice crowd has said for the past 15 years has been a lie. The movement gained a foothold in American culture around 2008, and we all got to live through that. I'm just going to skip down here. For the past 3 weeks, however, have served as a definitive proof that the benevolent emperor is a naked tyrant. The warriors for the oppressed are not so noble and selfish as they claim. Neither are they singularly motivated by the ideals of inclusivity, equity, and diversity. They're as greedy, vicious, prejudiced, and hateful as the oppressors they accuse. It's very similar to this cultural revolution in the Red Guard. The social justice crowd has only ever cared about acquiring power and influence, creeping towards the goal via emotional blackmail, intimidation
Yep.
campaigns, and even occasional violence. Theirs is not a cause for justice, but for self enrichment, a relatively bloodless conquest for power and treasure. They simply disguise their self interest in language of justice and altruism, all while plotting new ways to seize for themselves the privilege and power they envy in others. Nothing has done so fine a job of laying bare this reality as Hamas's October 7th slaughter of 1,400 Israelis, mostly civilians, including children. Since that day, social justice activists have flooded the city's streets and college campuses across the West, cheering war crimes and calling for destruction of Israel. They chant explicit calls for ethnic cleansing, including from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. There's only one solution, intifada revolution, and we can't wait for the caliphate. They proudly display signs showing the Star of David in a wastebasket, accompanied by the caption, please keep the world clean. They tear down posters featuring the faces of Israeli adults and children held hostage by Hamas. They use projectors to display messages such as glory to our martyrs onto school buildings. And we're seeing this across the country on college campuses everywhere now. And we have a large Jewish population here in the United States that's absolutely terrified by this. We've seen Jewish students having to hide. I don't see this happening on the other side here in the United States. And as I see this happening, I go back to this book that I just talked about, and it seems like we're seeing exactly what She Van Fleet is writing about in living color. It seems like there's only one explanation for why this is happening. Mao had turned the whole youth population into an activist population, and it seems like we've done the same thing here, Barry.
Mm-hmm. Well, I completely agree. It's at the same time, I always think that I try to look at the other side. I try to put it in perspective, and I think, well, everybody in their 50s of every generation look back at people in their 20s who early 20s who all of a sudden all at once learned a few things and thought they knew everything and wanted to protest and tell them how it should be.
Well,
And it's always that counterculture.
I think that, and it's really interesting you bring that up because that's been a common experience in our lifetime. And it started with the countercultural revolution of the 60s. And what She Van Fleet is saying is that started at the exact same time the Cultural Revolution happened in China, and that they were related to each other.
Oh, that's
Before this time, you didn't really see that kind of activism happening on campuses the way that it started to happen in the 60s. Another key difference, though, is this, Barry, is that you don't see usually on college campuses for most of our lives, the protests have normally been really regarding peace. This in there's a similarity here, like we want a ceasefire, but you're hearing ethnic cleansing chants.
Oh yeah.
We never heard that on college campuses before this. I never did. So and it's pretty shocking because up until now, at least here in our American culture, it's been never again. When you think about the Holocaust, never again.
Right.
To hear this turn on a dime, which seems like it turned on a dime very quickly, it's shocking to see, and it's disheartening.
Well, I don't know if it turned on a dime, but I mean, what was it, around 2008, 2010? It was kind of clear that our government and in collusion with our media is starting to push divisiveness. And
Absolutely.
that
Yeah.
author explained it pretty well about how, and we're going to talk about the left. I think it happens on the right too, but
I agree with that too.
yeah, I would
I
say
don't think that there's any good side.
no, and
I
that's
think
the
that
problem.
I think that we live in a fallen world, and anybody, there by the grace of God go I. Anybody can fall down into that hole and do things they shouldn't do. I mean,
See, so let me
it's
put it
just
like this. If we're talking about those people protesting for the Palestinians against Israel, I'm sure there's just as many protesting pro-Israel. And it's like, to me, freedom of speech. You're
I
allowed.
understand freedom of speech. Here's the difference, though, Barry, is that the one side is saying, when I see the Israeli protests, I'm not seeing we need to kill every one of the Palestinians
No,
or
I
get rid of
agree.
them. And also, the Hamas charter calls for the annihilation of all Jews. So if you have a Palestinian flag, it's Hamas that runs the Palestinian government, and that is their charter. That's what they stand for. And by the way, they were voted in. And so if that's what I mean, I think if you've got a flag and that's what your charter stands for, that's a sick thing. I can't imagine how anybody could see that and say that's the right thing, unless they're deceived about what Hamas actually stands for. But read their charter; it's online. They call for the annihilation of the Jewish race.
Yeah, and you could read
That's
anybody else's charters, Bibles, Qurans, or all this other stuff, and pick and choose what you want and
no,
twist
no, no,
it
no.
into what you
Yeah,
want.
have you read it? You got to read it, Barry. This isn't innuendo. This is
Not going to pick a side, Merle.
I'm not
I
telling
mean,
you to pick
they
a
have a
side.
right.
I don't think they have a right to eliminate another race.
I don't think they have a right to eliminate another race either, but I'm
Well,
saying
they
that
don't
these
have
people
they don't have
have a
that right.
right to protest.
They have a right to protest. I'm not saying they don't. What I'm saying is, do they know that what they're standing for is what that charter stands for? That's what I'm saying. I bet you they haven't read it.
Well, probably. I mean, I would
if they
assume.
did, why would, if you read it, then I think, and you know what they stand for, that how can you say that I mean, that's sick. If you stand for annihilating another race, that's worse than, I mean, that's what the Nazis were all about.
Well, see, where you're going with this, though, is now I would have to go and start pulling up YouTube videos on the whole Middle East problem, going back 200 years or whatever. And it's going to get really, really complicated, because I mean, I've done that research before. Frankly, it bores me to death, but I've wanted to learn about it. And all I could get out of it is there's no solving those problems.
Well, I understand what you're saying. I don't think it's boring, by the way. It's pretty exciting.
Well, I know
history.
you love that stuff.
But here's the thing: is one side is not calling for the annihilation of a race, and the other side is. I'd say that that's what the real problem is here, because you're not going to have a solution if one side wants to just annihilate the other side.
But you don't think Israel really wants to annihilate Palestine?
No, they actually have Palestinians living in their country, and they live together in harmony. That doesn't happen in the Gaza Strip. It doesn't happen in Iran or Iraq. It only happens in Israel. There is a difference. And so if you're studying it, you have to see that.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not saying you don't have a right to voice your opinion, because that's what America is about. And that's what I'm doing. I've done the research too, and I can see that one side calls for the annihilation of the other. And that's morally wrong.
Yeah. I don't know where to go with that. I really think I'm on overload with all of that. I don't think that we have any business being. It's not my business. I don't think it's our business, other than to be diplomats and help guide them into solving their own problems. That's what I felt.
Well, I would agree that makes it our business too, because the whole world hinges on this. Our supply chains hinge on this. World peace hinges on this. So now it is actually it's the whole world's business now, because this has the potential of becoming literally World War III. So, but I am in agreement with what you say. Diplomatically dealing with this is the right way to do this from the United States perspective. And by the way, if I were Israel or any other country that the United States is coming to the aid of, I would look at the United States track record over the past 20 years, and I would probably say, please stay out of our country.
Absolutely. Stay out of the business altogether.
Yeah. I mean, here's the other thing we're looking at, Barry, is that we're sending hundreds of billions of dollars over to other countries to support wars, when our own country is in shambles right now.
Yeah.
And we've got a lot of problems here that we seem to have a lot of money for everybody else's problems, but we don't have any money for our
It's
problems.
disgusting.
Case in point, we take a look at what happened in San Francisco this week with Xi Jinping's visit,
Yeah.
and they cleaned up San Francisco for him to come by. And they made a big deal out of him being there. It almost seemed like it turned into China over there. But here's the point. That place has been a cesspool for the last few years, and the citizens are like, wait a second, you could have cleaned this up the whole time, and you waited until the Chinese emperor comes over to do this. I say emperor, but whatever. That's I mean,
it's a smack in the face.
It really, it's a, to me, it's, and here
and
was
they'll still keep voting for Newsom.
That's the thing, man.
Blue, no matter who. Yeah.
And he was just over there in China with Xi Jinping too, Heck, and they were buddy over there. And I got to say, having been a former resident of California, to me, if that wasn't a wake up call to get out of California, I don't know what else was, because I mean, immediately he brought China right into California, and it looked like China over there. And that's the politics that they're bringing. They're heavily leveraged in China financially, the state of California, that is. And yeah, with the whole pension plan for the state of California is leveraged by Chinese bonds. And so this is it's a big deal. And of course, that means that the politics of China come to California as a result.
Yeah, it looks like they're already there. Yeah. I'm going to tell you, I've been saying it all along. They're going to be running Newsom instead of Biden one way or another. I think
you're
would
right
bet
about
on
that.
it.
I would too. I mean, but when are they? I wonder when they're going to pull the trigger on that.
It's getting late in the game.
It is, and boy, it just, you know, this dementia. I mean, you can't say it's anything else. It's dementia. It's getting worse every day.
It's clear,
and it's. I never thought I would see this. It's really astounding.
No, I know. It's kind of. It definitely all started with Trump. I mean, it didn't all start with Trump. Obama set the stage for the divisiveness and stuff, I think. But when Trump came in as the drain the swamp guy, end of the deep state, that got all of Washington in a panic, which means that they fed the media.
You're right about
all of the panic.
Yeah.
And that created that Trump derangement syndrome. And both sides have it. If you love them so much you can't stand it, it's because you hate the left so much. It's both of it. Both of it is fueled from hate. And I guess hate is just a very seductive and addictive quality.
Well, it goes back to the thing that we talked about so much about. You've brought it up several times, the sympathetic and parasympathetic, and when you get that hate part, that's all emotion, man, and it's easy to get to people. They don't even have to think, right? But then it takes a lot more brain power to think through these things and think about the other person's side and all that kind of stuff. And who's got time for that?
Yeah, agreed.
Hey, I wanted to change the subject a little bit.
Go ahead.
I've been watching this show on TV, and it's called Upload. And this is it's a series. I think it's on Hulu, and it's by the makers of Parks and Recreation. So it's a comedy, and it's a series. Okay, so I think there's like 6 of them out already. Now here's the concept. It's very interesting. It's futuristic. And I like the fact that it's a comedy. And what they have is they've discovered a way to load people's personalities and all their memories on computer format, so that when they die or before they die, they can make plans to transfer their being into this virtual reality. And so that's how the whole thing starts, is that this guy gets into a traffic accident, and as he's in the hospital, they say your vital signs are going down. So him and his girlfriend, fiance, have to make this quick decision. She's rich. Oh yeah, by the way, it costs a lot of money to be able to do this. And so they sign him up for this, but you can't just die. They actually have to kill you to put you in this thing. So they blow up his head, and he's literally, and now he's inside of this virtual reality with all of
The
these other
Matrix.
people, right? And it's supposed to be like heaven, right? But there's some drawbacks to it. The first thing is that everything is, you can't feel like your skin, you can't taste, you can't actually smell things, okay, because you're in virtual reality, and so you don't get those things. And so that's a big deal, actually. Now there's a company that facilitates all of this, and they are kind of like your guide through your experience, and you have your own personal angel. It's actually a person that's alive working at a computer like I'm sitting at right now, and they get these virtual glasses and they can have conversations and everything, and the person calls them their angel, like it's their guardian angel. And they start having these conversations. The one guy's angel has, her dad is very against this business, so she wants her dad to come into this virtual reality and have a conversation with this young man that just passed away, and get him to believe that this is a good thing. He's having a problem because his wife has just passed away, and they're Christians, and he believes that his wife is in heaven, and that when he dies, he's going to go to heaven and be with his wife. Well, he doesn't want his daughter to go into this virtual reality thing because he thinks it's going to prevent her from being in heaven and for them to all three be together. So you have these concepts that you and I have talked about, which are really the concepts of what they call singularity, and man and machine melding together, and this eternal life kind of thing, and what is eternal life, and what makes it. And they put it all into this show called Upload. And there's one part of the show where they try to beam this one person's personality into a living body so that they can actually reanimate and be into a body and basically live forever. But it doesn't work right away. They're still trying to figure it out. And that guy ended up dying. What a bummer. Because they couldn't upload him real quick before he died. But just so interesting in a practical way of being able to think about it and think about those concepts while being funny at the same time. I think it's really an interesting show.
Well, I saw at least the first few episodes, or maybe the first season of it a few years ago.
Yeah. Oh, really? Oh,
no, it was a few years ago. I could also add to that. First of all, I think it was only vaguely coming back.
Oh, you're right. It came out in 2000 is when 2020. I'm sorry, 2020.
Okay, well, that's when I saw it. I don't remember where it debuted, probably like Netflix or something. And I remember
Prime.
That guy.
It's on
you're
Prime.
Right. Okay. He had the rich girlfriend and all that.
Yes.
And so he entered in at the base level, and everything was an upcharge.
Yeah.
If you wanted all the cool stuff, it was so he was always asking her for money, as I recall. And the star of the show, I don't remember who it is, but I remember it was like the brother of somebody very famous.
It's Robbie Amell, Amell. He played.
Oh, right. Okay. So his brother's a super famous, but his brother is Steve Arnell, that played the Green Arrow on that TV series.
I gotcha. Yeah. And this is another interesting point, is that so he makes friends with this guy who's a multi-billionaire in the virtual reality world, and starts hanging out, and they play golf together, and the rich guy keeps buying him. Oh, you want the good clubs? Because he'd upgrade to the good clubs. And
like a video game.
You spent like $20,000 on me on just this game. And he goes, I'm a multi-billionaire. Who cares? But it's like, after a while, people are going to run out of money. And there was this one section there where people had run out of money. And then like there was one kid playing with the old paper towel roll.
That sounds like my childhood.
Yeah, exactly. Your kid, play with this.
I don't think I got that far along with it, though, because when you start talking about the family with the Christian conflicts there,
yeah,
I don't recall that at all. But my God, I think that's interesting. I would love to see them. I'd love to see them explore that more.
Yeah, that was the most interesting part to me. And I don't know if I may have seen the last episode. I'm not really sure, because it kind of ended abruptly.
So it's
but
still continuing.
I think, I don't know. I just turned it on the other day and I started watching it, and I was kind of blown away by the whole concept. And I kept thinking about a lot of the conversations that we had, but just going back to the fact this billionaire, this difference between that and heaven is like these guys are going to run out of money eventually,
they commercialized heaven.
That's what it was. And they actually said that this is capitalism, and this is how it works. So, because the guy was like, well, why don't you just give them this or that? It's just code. And she's like, oh, no, it's capitalism. So,
wow.
Yeah,
because you're talking about eternity. Even if you're a multi-billionaire,
you're going to run out.
Right.
And
it is a very interesting concept.
Yes. And especially as we talk about how, if this is going to happen, the people that have the means of controlling it are going to want to eke out the most profit as possible.
Yes.
And this is going to be a big part of it. So just really interesting. There's another part where they can communicate with people that are still alive. And this one kid was in there, and he wanted to communicate with his best friend. Well, he's been in there for like 15 years, and his best friend now is like ready to get married. He's an adult now.
I remember that.
I don't want to talk to that little kid anymore.
I remember that. Interestingly, last night I went to an event called AI in Cleveland. And it was at AdCom, an ad agency downtown, a beautiful building. It was really cool. And it was very well catered by Taza, which is Middle Eastern food. Really good stuff. And Mark Tennant, who I had on the show, who came on to talk about ChatGPT and stuff like that several months ago.
Good. Yeah,
he's the one. A few days ago, he's like,
"Hey, changed my life." By the way, that episode.
Yeah, well, mine as well. I've been using Chat since. And he's like, "Hey, this event's going on. Do you want to go?" I was like, "Oh yeah, absolutely." And so it was a lot of fun. And all it was, so this Institute of AI, it might be called Institute of AI in Cleveland, but so the event itself was just AI in Cleveland. But this the hosts of it, the Institute of AI, they have had, I guess now, two giant what do you want to call them, conferences. Giant conference. The last one was attended by 40,000 people, which was like 3 times more than they expected. And the event last night, it was like there was about 50 people there, and it was kind of like it was like a meetup, and it didn't even have speakers, a panel or anything. It was just a networking event. So so there's beers. In fact, they had a really good selection of beer too. So, and then really good food. And
wow, that sounds like a great time.
It really was. And so the conversation was also really interesting because you saw it was like Noah's Ark, 2 of every kind. There was the insurance guy who's like, he was like kind of young, but he's in this position of insurance where he's like, I don't know what it is. I just got to figure out how I can use it for marketing. That's why I'm here. And other people, one of the partners from AdCom was there talking about how they use it to a certain extent with their clientele, but there's a morality issue with it, that they, got to be careful how they disclose that they are using it. Because people otherwise think that they're cheating, something like that. There is a big part of that going on right now.
I can see that.
Yeah, I know. I heard Joe Pulizzi. I listened to his podcast. He was the originator, a founder of the Content Marketing Institute here in Cleveland years ago, like 2008, maybe before that. And he's since sold it for millions of dollars. Wow. But he's got a good podcast. And I heard him talking about how they still use it. He's still running a business and stuff doing this. And they use AI, but they put a disclaimer on every article that they use it on and say that it is AI assisted.
Huh. That's interesting.
Well, it is interesting because if you've been in my business all these years, you know how Google works. And I mean, even though it's an evil empire, it's at this point, a necessary empire
Yeah.
in the online world.
Can't get away from it. Yeah.
Can't get away from it. And so you have to know how to play nice with them. And because they'll create you'll start doing great as technology changes and you're taking advantage of it, like people did with plagiarizing and would
Right.
just stuff all this crappy stuff in it. Well, and then they'd rise to the top of the world, online world. And then Google creates an algorithm that makes that a no-no.
Figure
and
it out. Yeah.
boom. Yeah, the rug is pulled right out from underneath of them and their company's destroyed. So,
or they'll become the president, like Joe Biden.
Yeah,
remember
right.
that happened?
So what Joe Pulizzi's doing is getting ahead of the curve and saying, look, we're doing things ethically right from the very start by admitting that this is all AI assisted.
I get that. That's and as this whole AI thing evolves, that the ethics around it are going to evolve as well. In healthcare, AI is all the talk right now, and this whole chat GPT is being incorporated into medical information, medical records, and things like that. And they're trying to incorporate chat into almost everything in healthcare right now. The problem is that chat now, remember, this was all Elon Musk and some other people's brainchild, that they wanted to be able to put this mechanism out there that the whole world could take advantage of, and no one entity would own it and be able to, use it and lord it over other people. But then Microsoft bought it, which is the very place that you didn't want to buy it.
I don't think you got your history right on that. It did start with Elon, and I don't know of Microsoft buying it. But
that actually is true. It's owned by Microsoft now.
Chat GPT, you go to open.ai,
it's been bought by Microsoft.
Are you sure?
But I'm 99% sure now that you've said that. I was 100% about a minute ago.
Okay.
So we'll check it out. Okay.
But there's a lot of different AIs out there that are also Google's
got. We're talking about chat though, and how that's been an engine now that's embedded in all of these different programs and apps now. This whole
they're
thing,
leasing it out to everybody.
Big part of it, right? And as of right now, hey, all the stuff we're putting on chat right now is that it's theirs. Like they have it, right? That's theirs. They could do with it what they want.
That's a good point, because I would just like to briefly say, don't put your name and information in there. In fact, even your account, I would use a pseudonym or something like that.
Yes, you're not
put your information in there.
Everybody's using it for marketing right now, right? And so they're all putting their business stuff in there. Even their business secrets are going in there. Who's getting all of that? The people we don't want to have it, and that's what's happening. Point. It is interesting, and yet if you don't use it, you're going to be behind the eight ball competitively. So this is the same thing with, you take a look at these operating systems, and you mentioned Google and Microsoft and Facebook and all of that. Well, the fact is that they own the highway. Just like you said, it's a necessary evil. You can't do business, you can't live in life, you have to drive down their highway in order to get to the store. If you don't drive down their highway, you can't get to the store. And so in order to use their highway, they basically take everything from you when you drive down the highway. They take all your personal information, and man, it is such a racket. And it makes me wonder, did it start out when they came up with these companies? Was this the original idea?
I don't know.
I think back to when Facebook came out, and there was one before that, MySpace.
Something. MySpace. That was
it. And it was like, this is even classmates.com, where you could look back at it. It was like you could look at your who you graduated with, and that was the first one that came out. And then these things, but I would think, hey, that's so cool. I wonder what my friends from high school are doing. And that's what I thought the whole thing was invented for. And I wonder if they were like, we got that Merle guy. I wonder, because now looking back, it's like, it seems like that was what the plan was all along.
As far as where AI is going in chat and things like that, I listen to the smartest minds out there, like Elon Musk and Lex Friedman and all the people that they interview. And I got to tell you, man, nobody knows where it's going.
They don't. And
no idea.
It makes me feel like, as I as I take a look at technology, and of course, I look at it through the eyes of my Bible, and I can see that a lot of the prophecies for what's going to happen and really what's happening now are in the Bible. And it's like, how could they have known? How, if people wrote the Bible, how could they have known that this was going to happen like this? And also, there's no way it could happen without technology. There's one part in the Bible that talks about how at the Wailing Wall, where is in Israel, there's going to be these two prophets that stand there, and they're going to be there for like 3.5 years, and it's going to make the government very upset. And then what they're going to do is they're going to kill those guys, and when they kill them, the whole world, it says, is going to celebrate and give gifts to each other over a 3-day period of time. And when you think about that, this was written shortly, like right at 70 AD, something like that. How could the whole world see something and over a 3-year period of time, or 3-day period of time, have enough time to buy gifts and give them to each other? The only way that could happen is if you had like satellite TV. And of course, they didn't have that back then. And so, it's just like I read things like that and I'm like, well, this could only happen right now, because even when you look at that whole concept of the mark of the beast and how it says people will receive this mark on the back of their hand or their forehead, and if they don't have it, they won't be able to buy or sell. Well, you kind of have to have a digital currency enabled to enforce something like that. You wouldn't be able to, because people could just go on the black market and just buy things with cash if that was it. But no, they're saying no buying, no selling. They have to be able to control this somehow with technology, and that's another thing. So you look at this and you're like, all this technology just recently appeared on the scene, right? And then you look at like AI. Like, you're going to need AI, even quantum, in order to make a lot of these things that are supposed to happen. And so, like, and here it is. And here are the most brilliant people in the world saying, we don't know how this is going to go. And it's like, it's because it's not in their control. And that's what's so fascinating about the time that we live in. I mean, we really live in a very fascinating time.
Wild time.
Yeah,
well,
we really do.
See, it makes me think about, I've mentioned this before, and I talked to somebody about this last night at that AI event, and we had a very similar conversation. I said, what are the freaking chances that we got born right at this time out of all of the time? So my point is, like someone said, someone really smart on a podcast said a while back ago, said, so if you could envision the Matrix developing this virtual reality to the point where you choose whether you want to stay out here in a burning world, or if you want to go in there where you can have this great time, red pill, green pill, or however that goes. He goes, if you could imagine that that's a possibility, and maybe today you finally can, then that is going to happen, which seems inevitable to me for sure, then it has happened an infinite amount of times, because based on the theory of probability. And so where I'm at, the chances that we got born into this time where we're giving all of these memories of all the stuff that transpired for all these thousands of years, everything you've been talking about, and the Bible says all of this. Well, we woke up with these memories. We go about our life as we build our next God that's going to have his next universe. We join in with this God and build this next universe and nurture those things along. And they do the same thing infinitely over and over again.
Interesting.
It seems probable to me.
It's so funny. I mean, before I became a Christian, I used to think about along the same lines. you remember when we were kids, they used to always make us do these projects where you'd get an old shoebox and then you'd make some kind of scene in there.
Oh yeah, that was so
Remember those?
fun.
Yeah,
Yes.
people love doing that.
Yeah, it
And
was
I
so
used to,
cool.
it was cool. It was fun. I was not a very creative kid,
Now,
so
are you talking
mine
about
always.
where you put like the paper towel rolls on either side with the scroll of paper on it and you turn it so that
Oh
scenes
no,
went
I didn't
through?
even think about that. They
Oh,
see
we did that in
only see
elementary
that
school.
would be really cool. Well, but you put a scene in there, like maybe you got to do a book report, and then you make like a scene from the book report inside the
Uh-huh.
shoebox. And
Oh,
I
okay.
never thought
Okay.
about making a
I
scene go
follow.
past like that. That's really cool.
Yeah.
But I used to think, wow, what if that's our life? What if like this whole world that we live in is really like one of those shoebox scenes, and we're in this closet with thousands of these shoe boxes just all
Yeah.
stacked up, and each one of those shoe boxes, they think that's the universe that they live in, and there's nothing
Yeah.
else outside of that.
Yeah.
And I used to game out on that kind of thought. The bottom line is that I know what I know from the Bible, but I also believe there's so much more that I don't know. So who
Yeah.
knows? It could be like that.
I know.
And
That's it.
like this is a thing you don't ask in church is, okay, well, where did God come from?
Yeah, right, right,
Uh
right. Well, that's what I've always asked since I was
blasphemy,
a
get
kid.
out of here.
I know. I know. I know. But you've told me, we've talked about that, and you just say, well, he exists outside of space and time.
Well, this is true, which try
Mhm.
to wrap your head around that. I've been
Well,
trying to
there you
do that
go.
for years.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, this is a mind expanding conversation we're having right now.
Well, it's gripping with reality as we get to know more, a lot
Yeah,
more. It's
yeah.
it's hard. It's hard.
It's interesting too, because the show Over 50 starting over. One of our neighbors turned 50 recently, and she had a big party that we got invited
You
to. I
can
think I
invite
talked
her to
about this.
watch the show now.
Now she's allowed. I sent it over to her that day. But she was talking about how, oh man, I'm turning 50, and now I'm feeling out of sorts, and I don't like, I've never had an age where I turned that age, and I'm just kind of freaking out. And I said, you're looking at it all wrong.
Oh yeah.
Here's what you got to figure out. You're 50. You're at that place now where you got your own thoughts, and it doesn't matter what the guy down the street thinks.
Right.
The heck with that guy. You're 50. You can just go over and say, you know what, you're wrong, and here's what's right, and then not care and go, it is so free. You're free. And boy, did that change the whole countenance on her face. She was like, yeah, I'm 50, as she walked back into her house. But I do feel like, to your point that you were making, is that as we get more wisdom, as we get older, some of these things that we had when we were younger that inhibited us and held us back just kind of melt away.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah, there's well, everybody always says about after 50, you don't care what anyone thinks anymore. Well, there is a lot less of that, and it is very inhibiting. And so yeah, there's that. There's less. I
You've lived a life, you've experienced things. Nobody can really pull the wool over your eyes on many things like they
right,
could maybe 20 years ago and say, oh,
right,
this is what life is all about. No, you're the gray hair.
right.
You know what you've done. You've been
You're an
there, done
expert in
that.
something.
Yeah, you've been there, done that. You've made it this far. Now, you can't say that about all the people you went to school with, and
Right.
there's something to be said, even just for that.
I was going to ask you what your neighbor, what she does for a living, because go ahead, tell me.
I think she's in sales. I think she works for Verizon Wireless.
Oh, okay. As what I was wondering is, does she like what she's doing? And if she does, she has a lot, for one, to be proud of, that she has pursued something that she's loved, and can really take that to another level. But if she doesn't, then she also is armed with an awful lot of experience and education where she can now go and pursue something else that
Right
she
on.
does love.
Well, what was
But
really
she
cool
has to
about
realize that.
what was really cool about that party was she had a lot of people from her employment there, and they were having the best time.
Yeah.
It seemed to be that they'd known each
Uh,
other for years and years and years, and they kind of felt like a big family. So I know when I'm in that kind of environment, I'm loving it. And so
yeah.
that it seemed like she was really embracing that whole thing.
No, that's cool. That's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Outside of that, um, I had some more stuff up front that I don't want to go back to because I feel like we'd be
I've
going,
exhausted all of my subjects that I wanted to talk about. I think this is a good place to wrap her up.
and that's fine by me because I didn't put anything down in current events because, like I said, all current events is just the Israel stuff and um,
You mentioned it earlier. It's overwhelming. It
it's
really
too
is.
much.
And
It's
yeah,
too much.
it really is too much. And I have found myself at the end of my rope dealing with the information where it makes me irritable and I
Yeah.
don't want to talk about it and I'm frustrated and I think a lot of people are in that boat. And here we come towards Thanksgiving. And I think that it's time for us to start to think about things that we can be thankful about. And
Mm.
there's a lot more things that we can be thankful about than things that we can complain about. The fact that we're just able to have this conversation
And an
and
anniversary. It
and
was right around this time that we started the show.
it sure was, Barry.
Mm,
Gosh, you
mm.
know, I mean,
Was it 4 or 5 years? It is 19.
I think it's four. I think
Go
it's
do the
four
math.
years.
4 years. Yeah.
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 So
And
boy,
that's really been very important.
it has been. It's been a huge part of my life. Thanks for reminding me that this is the anniversary, and thanks for talking me into this. It took you
Well,
several years of talking to me
yeah.
about this
Yeah.
before I felt like I had a sign from God that said, "Merle, you got to do this with Barry," and it's been one of the best things I've ever done in my life. So
Yeah. I
I'm
absolutely
so
appreciate
happy.
that too. God, there was something else I wanted to tell. Oh, I wanted to just see if you had any feedback that I was talking to Lisa earlier, and she was saying, she watches every one of those news channels. She records them, and then at lunch and all that, she binges all this stuff. She was mentioning something about how the immaturity of Congress, that Mitch McConnell was accused of pushing somebody and they got really in his face and he's
Hmm.
like, hey, I didn't do that. It was I'm totally messing this up, but she was talking about just the immaturity within our political parties. And
Yeah, I
I
thought I
totally
saw something
messed
about
that up.
Kevin McCarthy elbowing somebody
Yeah,
or
that's what I'm talking about. I thought you
I
would
didn't
know it and
actually I
run
didn't
with it.
actually read the whole thing. I
Okay.
saw that and I was just like, I kind of have the same reaction. Like, are you kidding me? Like,
Yeah.
what a bunch of clowns down there. It's embarrassing to see
Y-
Congress.
you know, when we talk about how the American public has been manipulated and is being manipulated into this divisiveness, and the media is complicit in it and all that, those dummies in Washington are fully brainwashed themselves.
Oh my gosh, no kid. It's not even they don't live in reality over there at
No.
all. And I mean, seriously, it's a shame.
Yeah.
I'm ashamed when I see the
Oh God.
bickering, the things that it's like you're getting paid for this. Are you kidding me? It's a clown show. It's a clown
Yeah.
show over there.
Yeah.
Um,
And another thing, what's her name? She's running for president. It's a tip of my tongue. Um,
Nikki Haley.
Yes, yes, Nikki Haley. I heard her history about how she was an accountant to some, but didn't pass the big exam or
Hmm.
whatever to become certified, and she was broke and all of this, but went into politics, was in politics, and all of a sudden, she gets hired under the board of Lockheed Martin, and she's a millionaire. I
Huh.
think it was Lockheed Martin. It's the military industrial complex, and
Of
now
course.
that's her whole
I've never heard that
platform.
before. Yep.
You know,
Yeah.
there was a
She's ready to go to war right
yeah.
away. Yeah.
Have you
I think a lot
followed
of
it
these
all
people
or
are in
heard it
there.
all about her and Vivek Ramaswamy, how they go at it? And
I
dude, he
can't
tore
even.
up at the last debate.
Did he really?
He tore up.
You know, Barry, it's funny. I haven't watched really the Republican debates, I haven't wasted my time listening to.
I only get this via Crystal and Sagar's Breaking Points
yeah,
podcast.
they're pretty
and they
good.
play these nice segments. So when everybody, what they came away with, here's what I'm trying to say, is that, so they're having these debates and they say, well, what would you do about Israel? Or so, oh, and first of all, dude, they were hosted by a Democratic or CNN or CNN, CBS
like,
or somebody,
what?
and by a Democrat. And it's the first loaded question that was given to Vivek, and everybody else already did their talking points, their boring talking points. And he goes, well, let me ask you first, why should I answer your question? Like, why are we being hosted in this manner? I wish I could remember exactly how he said it because it was perfect. When he said, if this was a Democratic thing, you certainly wouldn't be being interviewed by Tucker Carlson on Fox News. And then he went on talking about just the misinformation that's being regarded with Israel. And I mean, he hit heavy talking points.
He really did.
In that none of the other people were prepared to even respond to. They're like, wait a minute, we got our tried and true spiel that we're supposed to say, that the polls tell us that this is how we should respond. And he's talking shooting from the hip, right from the heart. I was like, wow. And that's where I think I got the information about Nikki Haley and just how corrupt that she has become very quickly. Like because she was nothing until she got on that board. And then all of a sudden millionaire.
I hadn't heard that, but
I know. Well, look how vaguely I put it,
bummer.
because I don't remember all the details.
I'm going to definitely look into that, though, because I mean, it makes sense that it would be something like that. And I believe, as we've talked about, so many of these people in Congress and high positions have made so much money from the military industrial complex. It's not even funny. Hey, you know what? I wanted to go back to something, though, that out of this book that I had that was absolutely good, that you reminded me of when I started thinking about the clown show and everything. And it's at the end of her book, she does say this, that there's a hope is not all lost. Progressive education in America started its takeover in the 1930s. It's taken progressivism almost a century to get where they are today, yet they failed to indoctrinate all of us. The story of John David Rice Cameron is an encouraging one. You ever hear of this guy?
Mm-mm.
Me neither. He is and I think it's funny because wait till I read the rest of it. He is the son of Susan Rice, who is one of the prominent progressives, former U.S. ambassador to the UN, advisor under both Clinton and Obama, and currently a member of Biden's Domestic Policy Council. Against all odds, Rice Cameron is a conservative. Here is a direct quote from the October 15, 2018 Washington Post article. Quote, Rice Cameron is not just a conservative, but the head of the Stanford College Republicans and a proud supporter of President Trump. His ambition is to make Stanford great again. Rice Cameron demonstrates to us that progressive brainwashing is not insurmountable.
Wow.
Very interesting.
No, it really is. No, it's so interesting. It was touched on a couple times here in this podcast about, I don't know how you put it, but the smoke screen that comes at you with progressivism. And it really all comes down to, they hide behind this cloud of compassion. Everything. And if you don't believe what I believe, and then you got to get emotional, then you are a heathen, you're a Nazi, and
that was good.
You got to be you got to realize you got to be a little feeble-minded to have to go that route, because you got one playbook. That's all you got to know. So I've been on this rabbit hole watching YouTube videos of policemen with their cameras on, their body cams on at all times. Now, of course, thank God, to be a cop, you should, pulling over usually women for DUIs and stuff like that. And it's so entitled. And
seen that too, actually.
You can really go down a rabbit hole because it's funny. And this one girl was screaming, how I'm Indonesia.
I saw this one. She's an indigenous.
Yeah, and it's like her last name was Perry. I
Yeah,
remember
right.
that. And she was not, and she did the woman thing, and you're
Yeah,
hurting
she's
me. And
non-binary. Yeah,
yeah,
like
all of it. You
she was
saw that too.
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. She had anxiety. She had
Yes, yes.
she couldn't
And you're a
like
white man, so
yeah,
I'm
yeah, you're a
afraid.
white man talking to me, so you're intimidating me. And like he was trying to make her walk a straight line, but that
Yeah.
she had so many excuses because she was an
Yes.
indigenous person.
She
That
was
was
a
a
victim in 8 ways. Yeah.
yes, yeah, and this is it. This is it. The oppressors versus the oppressee. That's what they've boiled life down to. And get the oppressor, because you're a victim, and
Yeah.
that's what they've convinced everybody of. And it was sick. What a lily livered individual this person was. He can't stand up to anything, and
Right.
that's the whole culture we've created. It's
Right.
I
And
mean,
it's worked
God
and
help us.
destroyed a lot of countries.
That girl was completely destroyed herself. I
One of
mean, what kind
many.
of life can
One of,
that person have?
in every one of these cases, I just think, prosecute the parents because they failed.
They really did.
We have
The
no
parents.
we have no parent. I say this all the time. We have no parenting classes. I mean, maybe somewhere you could find one, but you're not required to learn anything about parenting, and there's no grading system thereafter. When you ruin your kid's life, and that kid ruins a lot of other lives, it's like I think that's where we need to gain some awareness and figure out just a bare minimum of guidance, just a bare minimum, just some guardrails so it doesn't go off the rails
Yeah.
because it's completely off the rails now.
No, you're right. And I think about like this book again, Mao's America, how before the Cultural Revolution started, he started this whole commune system whereby landowners lost their property rights, and then all these people had to live in these shared properties. Which had the effect of basically breaking up the family, breaking up the authority in the family, so that families now are very, very weak.
Yes.
And then they went after the educational system to use as their indoctrination, but they had to destroy the family first so that they could use the school to make it so that Mao was basically their dad and their god.
Yes. Yeah,
and,
just like North Korea.
That's what we're seeing. Yeah, we're seeing it happen, and it's systematic. They know exactly what they're doing, and and here we are in America. It's that old frog in the pot slowly boiling. It's like, hey, so, like Bugs Bunny, hey, what's cooking, Doc?
Right,
and
right.
this is it. And so people more again, get the book. More people need to know exactly what's happening, so that once they realize, hey, I'm in the pot and it is starting to boil, we still have time to get out of the pot.
And we've said before, it really only takes about 10% of our population, because that's really the
great
leaders.
news. Yes, you're right about that, Barry. Very good, man. Very good.
All right. Well, with that,
very stimulating conversation. This was great, Barry. I'm glad we were able to.
I enjoyed it too. I got to figure out what's going on with my picture. God, it looks terrible. Yeah. If you guys, if you're actually watching it, I am so sorry. I hope you're just listening.
Hey, tell us how they can find us on the internet and how they can check us out and everything, Barry.
Appreciate that.
Lead us out.
Yeah, please sign up with us at Apple Podcasts and give us a 5-star rating. If you go to over50startingover.com and sign up to our mail list, right there, you'll get everything with each episode right into your email box as it happens. On YouTube, Over 50 Starting Over. And please like and share and subscribe. Really appreciate it. Thanks, Merle, I always forget that. So thank you.
No. Great show, Barry.
Yeah.
Show,
and I'm glad you're feeling better. Thank God.
you. Yeah, this helped.
All right, brother.
All right.
See you soon. Love you, buddy. All right. Bye.